Hi y'all, it's Stacey Summerow and we are here to talk about construction, new construction, and specifically today, I have my little handy dandy notes here. I'm going to talk about looking for land and what are some good things to look for. I'm not an expert, I'm just a consumer. I'm a person who bought land. We bought 5 acres in beautiful Stevens City, Virginia, in the rural area where we can have unrestricted land. And I'm just going to talk about if you have the homestead dream like we do and you want to build a house, a custom house from scratch, I'm going to just talk you through some things to look out for. This is not an all-inclusive guide, of course, but this is what we learned and I hope that it benefits you. As always, if you are benefiting from this content, please feel free to like, subscribe, share with friends, and leave a comment below because it helps tell the algorithm that you like this content and you want to see more of it. Let's talk about going to view land. So the land values in our area have just shot up like crazy. First thing I would recommend is pray a novena to St. Joseph, the St. Joseph's Cloak Novena. I'll leave a link in the show notes of my video about that novena, and then also I'll leave a link to the novena specifically. It's kind of a beast. It takes 20 to 30 minutes every day to pray for 30 days. But you know what? It helps prove to yourself and St. Joseph that you really want this homestead. So start praying it. He's going to get you. He's going to take care of you. Buying land can be really stressful because there's a ton of competition. Anytime land goes on the market around here, we see it disappear. If it's a good lot of land and it's not overpriced, we see it disappear in 2 days. It's gone. That's what happened with our land. I was obsessively on Zillow for about 9 months, waiting for something to pop up in this area. And specifically what I was looking for were no high tension power lines. You know, those ones where you can hear the buzz. There's some areas in this some land in this area that has those high tension power lines going through the land. And unfortunately, you can buy the land, but you have a higher risk of brain cancer for your children, and you're just going to hear that buzz every time you go outside. We also really wanted unrestricted land. So let me dive into that for a second, because depending on what you want, you may want restrictions or none. For us, we wanted unrestricted land. And what that means is you can have animals, you can build whatever structures you want. You don't have like a ton of, you don't have an HOA, and you don't have restrictions in the deed or the covenants of your area. So a lot of times people think that land is unrestricted if there's no homeowners association, which is abbreviated HOA. That's not always the case. We looked at a house not far from here. We really fell in love with it. It was only on 2 acres, but you know, it was good land. We thought we can do what we want on this land. And we were going to put an offer on the house, and our realtor said, well, hold on a minute, look into the deed of the house and see if there are restrictions. So sure enough, we did. And you know what it said? Even though there was no HOA and it looked like land was unrestricted, it said no non-urban pets except horses. You can have horses, but you can't have chickens. For whatever reason, this particular subdivision, even though it looked like unrestricted land, because there was no HOA, people were not allowed to have chickens or any non-urban pets is what it was. And that is often the case for land. Even if it looks unrestricted, ask every single question that you can about it, because we really had to dig deep and make sure, is this land truly unrestricted? If we have a milk cow, if we have chickens, if we have pigs, will there be a problem? And in our area, it's a little deceptive too, because there are a lot of farms, but then a lot of the new constructions will have restrictions on the land. So, and the reason why would anybody even want restrictions is my question. And I kind of see the point of them, because people want like a country vibe without actually having to smell a pig farm next door. So I get that that's, you know, different strokes for different folks, but it can be really deceptive because even lots of like 10 acres in this area, you can't have non-urban pets on many of them. And I'm like, 10 acres, come on. That's plenty of space to like avoid, you know, your neighbor's wild fowl that you don't want waking you up at 5 a.m. every morning. But you know, that you just have to really ask a lot of questions. Going along with that, so make sure your realtor looks into all the covenants and restrictions. Going along with that, also call the county and find out what are the plans for this land around this lot of land that I'm looking for. Are they, what are the plans for the next 10 or 15 years? Is this an area that the county envisions staying rural? Are you going to have a solar farm that's going to go up next door to us? Are you going to allow, one of the big builders in the area to buy and put up a whole bunch of spec homes, in which case it's going to make the area much more crowded, and you might have an entire new subdivision going up? Figure out what the county's plans are for the area. So we did a lot of phone calls for the county planning commission or whatever, and they said, we plan, it's up to the individual owners of the farms around you what they do with their land, but they said that the requirement was that every house had to have at least 2 acres. They weren't going to be selling it. There was no plans to change the zoning, and the zoning says that you have to have 2 acres for every house. So we're not going to get spec houses being built with like a 1/4 acre lots. That should not be happening around us. And the 60 acres behind us is a preservation that cannot be broken up. So there's land law is a whole other thing. If you don't have a lawyer to talk to like us, then do your research on your own and call and ask all kinds of questions from your county. You're going to want to see if the soil will perk. What does that mean? I actually don't know what perk stands for. It might be percolate, but basically you want to make sure there's good drainage on your soil. As part of the process of selling their land, a lot of the landowners will actually perk the soil. They'll pay for a soil testing company to come out, and they do tests on the land. They basically pour water on it, and they see how much water the soil can absorb in the space of an hour. And the reason that that's valuable is because it'll tell you how big of a house that you can build on that property. If the soil's not going to perk, it means it's not suitable for a septic system, which means that you could buy a beautiful piece of land, and guess what? You can't build a house on it. So before you actually purchase the land, you may either want to pay for a soil testing company to come out and evaluate it, or take a look at the report and make sure that you can get enough drainage that you're going to get the size of the house you want. So one lot that we looked at got what's called a 3-bedroom perk. So they assume it's just rough estimates, but the terms, they sound, you're like, what does this even mean? So I'm going to try to explain it. 3-bedroom perk means that they assume there's 2 people per bedroom, and then each of those bedrooms would have a bathroom, basically, and the amount of water that you need coming through your septic system from your toilets and your showers and laundry and all of the ways that the drainage needs to leave the house. They said that this lot of land would be able to house 6 people and have enough water coming out. They estimate so many gallons per day per person. If you can get a 3-bedroom perk, that's okay. 4-bedroom is better. That means basically 8 people could live in that house. Now, with that being said, does that mean that if you have 9 people living in your house, you have 7 children, you can't have a house with a 3-bedroom perk or even a 4-bedroom perk? Not necessarily. My parents, there's 8 children in my family, and I talked to my dad about it, and I was like, was this ever a problem? And he's like, no, it's fine. Like, you can have more kids living there. It's okay. You probably just don't want to have another rental house that you open up with like an Airbnb that'll hold up to 15 people. Like, that's going to overload the septic system. That's the land is not suited to that. So as long as you can get like a 3 or 4-bedroom perk, that should be good for most families. If you have 15 children, you probably are going to want more than a 4-bedroom perk. But I don't know. That's maybe a little on the outlying circumstance. Talk to an expert. Don't talk to me. All I know is I'm not an expert. I'm just a person who was buying land. There are things called setbacks that you're going to want to pay attention to, and that was written into the deed for our house. For some reason, I don't know why, our builder was like, I don't know why they did this, but they put 100-foot setbacks all around the property. And what that means is that within 100 feet of the edge of the property, you cannot build anything. So our house, we were going to put it on this one particular spot, and then our builder was like, nope, can't go there. There's 100-foot setbacks. We have to put it all the way kind of this direction. So because we have 5 acres, that's okay because there's still plenty of room. But on certain areas, you're going to just have to look out for that and make sure that you can get your house in the spot that you want it to be in. Let's talk more about septic fields, everybody's favorite topic. So there's 2 kinds of septic fields. There's conventional, and then there's, what's the other one? Alternative. Okay, so nowadays in our area, at least, they're doing a lot of alternative septic fields. It's supposed to be more like, I don't know, eco-friendly, but it also costs like $20,000 more. So as part of the perk perking process, they're going to look at whether or not you qualify for a conventional septic field versus an alternative. And if it's an alternative, it's going to be a lot more expensive. Ours was alternative, and I think most of the time they don't let you build conventional septic fields anymore. And I don't know the specifics. It's just something you have to budget for and ask your builder about when you go to see the land. Oh, and have your builder come with you to see the land. If you watch my previous video and I talked about looking for land and I talked about looking for builders as well, have your builder come and say like, this is a good piece of land for you, or like, I'm not sure that this is what you're looking for. Let's move on. Let's keep looking. Our builder was very helpful, and he got to take a look and see, is this actually going to be suitable? So another thing that our builder pointed out that I didn't think about was whether or not there is a strong possibility that they would have to blast with with dynamite in order to build a basement. So for us, one of the things we really wanted for our family is a basement. We have two boys and two girls, and our boys in particular need to get the energy out. And in our current house, there is no basement. So that was a non-negotiable for us. And our builder came to look with us at this one property, and there were like stones sticking up out of the ground. I always think that looks really pretty. Like I love like the look of like stone outcroppings. But what he told us is that there's a strong possibility that they would not be able to dig without bringing in dynamite to blast. And he's like, that would be another $20,000 to $30,000 that you have to just budget for just to get your basement. You may not have to blast, but if you do, this is how much it's going to cost. And so for us, we just had to make sure we worked that into the budget, and the land was on that particular lot was less expensive than some others we had looked at. So we thought, okay, well, we would have some wiggle room if we needed to blast. I shared this in my previous video, but I'll reiterate it here about land loans. Your land becomes the down payment on your house, assuming that it is 20% or more of the total project. So let's say you pay $100,000 for your land and the house is going to cost $400,000. Well, the land equals 20% of the total project, which is $500,000. The bank looks at your total cost of your project. Wow, I'm tired. Can you tell? The bank looks at it as $500,000 project, and so they are going to use your land as your collateral on the loan because your land is what's real. If you don't pay your construction loan bill, then that is what they will take away from you. And that is what that's your collateral. So the land actually becomes part of your total project. So if you have a rough estimate in your mind of what kind of house you would like to build, and if your builder can tell you how much that house is going to cost, then that is going to be really helpful in order to price out your land. How much land can we afford? And will we have to bring more to equal that 20% to closing? Or does this land qualify for 20% of the total project? And once we pay that off, we don't have to bring an additional down payment to closing. Our realtor told us, I don't know if this is universal, but if you can pay cash for your land, what that means is you don't literally pay actual cash, but it means that you put in a full price or a full offer. Sorry, you pay it off all in one go. So instead of financing your land, cash offer means that you just pay it off right at closing and you don't have a loan. Now, as I mentioned before, if the land you're buying is 20% of the total project cost, that is your down payment. So that you don't have to have another 20% for the house as well. You can just pay off your land. So I also mentioned this in my previous video, but it's worth mentioning here again. National banks don't do land loans or construction loans. It's more of a specialty thing. So you're probably going to have to go to your local bank. There's any number of them around you, I'm sure, like banks that are based in your near vicinity, maybe specific to your state or specific to your county. Like those are places where you can get a construction loan and a land loan, but you can't go to Chase Bank, you can't go to Capital One, at least not in our area. Again, I'm not an expert. I am a person who bought land 2 years ago, but this is what my research turned up for me, and I had no idea. Just start doing your research now into what banks actually offer those, and just know that you're probably going to have, even if your credit score is excellent, you're going to have less of an ability to shop around for a construction loan. That's all I have for you today. I hope you are enjoying this content and benefiting from it. Forgive my tired face today. My children wake me up at 4:30 in the morning and I am exhausted. So pray for my energy, please, because this whole sleep thing, it's rough waters. But I've been meaning to make this video for months and months and months. And so I'm finally just doing it. I'm doing it. Here we are. So until I see you next time on Called and Caffeinated, God bless you. And I'm going to leave some links in the show notes where you can support my ministry and the continued provision of this free content for you. All right, take care.